Welcome to Life Skills TTP. It's about the end of the month. I wait because I see, hey, what people are gonna do if they're interested. They make a lot of fuss about Black History Month. I'm gonna go back to about 2015. I was checking out some different psychologists at that time. I was writing a paper, but we're gonna get into just the basics of what Black History Month is. It has its roots in February because of the historian Carter G. Woodson and the Association for the Study of Afro American Life and History, ASALH, started Negro History Week in 1926, the second week of February, to coincide with Frederick Douglass's birthday, February 14th, and Abraham Lincoln's birthday, February 12th. The expansion to a month in the 1960s, universities and communities expanded the celebration from a week to a month. Now, they did this themselves. For all the people who say, oh, they pick, you try to look for something negative and everything, but they actually did this. The official national recognition in 1976 during the U.S. bicentennial, President Gerald Ford officially recognized Black History Month, calling upon Americans to observe Black History Month with the appropriate ceremonies and activities. I will say this again, with the appropriate ceremonies and activities. Since then, February has been celebrated nationwide as Black History Month. And so that's just a little backdrop, a little back history on Black History Month. So, like I told you, I'm fascinated with human beings, so psychology. So the first thing I want to know is the psychologists. But in college, they have a distinct separation. They have a distinct separation. And you have to be careful with who you like as far as verbalizing that, and because it will get challenged throughout your time spent in school. So if you just say famous, this is very interesting to me. I have two different papers. I'm going to take a picture of these. I'm going to probably put them in there. But one of them says famous psychologists, and I have another reference or thing that I looked up from the Active Mind blogs. Now, mind you, this is from February 28, 2015, changing the conversation about mental health. So, prevention and awareness. And it says 10 African and African American psychologists you should know. February 28, 2015, by Barry Wallace Jr. Now, this blog back in 2015 had one comment. Wasn't really a thing back then, but I got this to do some research and to figure out why they separated. So we have the 10 African American psychologists, and then over here we have famous psychologists like Sigmund Freud, Carl Jung, John Patchett, Carl Rogers, William James, Ivan Povala, Eric Erickson, B.F. Skinner, these people that they want you to know. I can go on and on and on, Alfred Adler, Alice Miller, through this famous psychology. You got Karen Horney, which is from she's German, but she looks definitely native or African descent. And so for Black History Month, I don't even want to get into black and white. I'm just going to talk about famous psychologists because there's a some kind of distinction between African American psychologists and famous psychologists. I don't get it. So it's Black History Month. I'm going to talk about psychologists. And the first one that I'm going to talk about is Kenneth Bancroft Clark. Born in 1914 to 2005. His contributions, work essentials in the case of Brown versus Board over education. In the famous doll study, he studied the response of more than 200 black children who were given a choice of a white or brown dolls. His findings illustrated that children showed preference for white dolls from as early as 3 years old. Thus, he concluded segregation was psychologically damaging, which played a role in the Supreme Court's decision in outlawing segregation. Additionally, he was the first black president of the American Psychological Association. Heavy. Kenneth Bancroft Clark. And the next famous psychologist is Francis Cecil Summer, 1895-1954. Contributions: first African American to receive his PhD in psychology. Helped establish the psychology department at Howard University to train African American psychologists. Summer completed vast amounts of research which counteracted racism and biases in psychological studies of African Americans. Some of his students went on to become leading psychologists in their own right. For example, Kenneth Clark. And the next one we have is Mamie Phillips Clark, 1917 to 1983. Her contributions are her work with children showed that African American children became aware of their racial identity about 3 years old. Many of these children began to see, reflect, and internalize the views that society held about them. She also found that many African American children who were tested and informed they had a learning disability or disabled were diagnosed incorrectly due to the biases of psychological testing. And the next one we have is Inez Beverly Proser, and this is from 1891 to 1934. Her contributions were the first African-American woman to receive her PhD. Her dissertation examined the academic development of African-American children in mixed and segregated schools. Her findings shows that African-American children fare better socially and academically in segregated schools. Specifically, she found that African-American children from integrated schools experience more social maladjustment and felt less secure, a barrier to their learning. She spent the last 7 years of her life teaching at historical black colleges. Now, she sounds specific, and also I'm going to do a little more research on her. I don't want to have, that's just not enough information for me. Robert Lee Williams II, 1930 to the present, contributions, founding member of the National Association of Black Psychologists and served as its second president. He created a black intelligence test and cultural homogeneity by utilizing African American vernacular and personal experience. This test showed that African Americans were intellectually inferior to European Americans, but the differences in speech and experience can skew IQ results. Also, he created a team of ebonics to refer to the African American vernacular English. No, brother. These are psychologists. You wonder where some of this stuff came from. Well, I'm going to show you. Albert Sidney Beckham. Now, Beckham, we have David Beckham the soccer player. I do this because I stay in real time. I'm just like, oh, this is interesting. You're not going to find too many people they consider African American with that last name. So 1897 to 1964, his contributions. He is regarded as the first African American to hold the title. Now here we go again with these titles. To hold the title School for Juvenile Research and Chicago Bureau of Child Study. He brought together ministers whose parishes included family of students he was working with, allowing for the first time a church neighborhood school relationship in the community that benefited African American youth. Woo! There was a lot right there. It's a lot. What happened? So the next one we have is Kobe Kaban, a.k.a. also known as Joseph A. Baldwin. Contribution. Served as the president of the Association of Black Psychologists from 1982 to 1983. 1 year. He does research in the areas of African American mental health and psychological outcomes of racial, cultural oppression of African Americans in American society. Okay. He developed several measures of African-centered worldviews and philosophies. His work examines how deviations from African-centered worldviews can have a detrimental effects for African Americans in the U.S. The next one we have is Beverly Daniel Tatum, 1954 to the present. Her contribution, she's widely recognized as a race relations expert and leader in higher education. Her areas of research include racial identity development and role of race in the classroom. Her book, Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Together in the Cafeteria, examines the development of racial identity. She argues racial identity is essential to the development of children. That's heavy. The next one we have is Joseph L. White, 1932 to the present. Contributions. Helped found the Association of Black Psychologists and established its first Black Studies program during the 1968 strike at San Francisco State University. He wrote Towards a Black Psychology and argued that whatever the future of race relations and the destiny of black people and the creation of black psychology was necessary because psychology created by white people could never adequately apply or define African Americans. He pointed out that the application of white psychology to African Americans often led researchers to incorrectly conclude that African Americans were lacking or less than. No, they were famous psychologists. Famous psychologists, that was it. What I see is that the blacks or the African Americans decided, hey, we're going to have our own psychology, black psychology, instead of psychology. It's why I think there's a lot of mental health issues. There's a lot of different things because if you can't even get along in a space where you're actually supposed to help people, then we have no chance. We have no chance. And last but not least, Herman George Kennedy, 1901 to 1970. Contributions. He was the first psychologist to examine the role of race. Here we go again. The role of race of the examiner as a bias factor in IQ testing. His master thesis discussed the role of race of the examiner in establishing testing rapport and providing suggestions for establishing an adequate testing environment in which African American students can thrive. He was instrumental in founding in the West Virginia Psychological Association and West Virginia State Board of Science Clinic. So, about the author, Barry Wallace Jr., he was the class of 2015. Is a psychology major at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. His research interests include the impact of personality traits on relationships, positive psychology, and the resilience and the impact of covert discrimination on minority individuals. My kind of guy. Don't be specific. All people. Life Skills TTP. This is Black History Month. Just a little history on the psychologists and just get a little breakdown. I did the paper on this very thing. And I just like psychologists. I don't want to say black or white. I think it did a disservice. I think it separated a lot of knowledge. I personally believe if they were to connect and communicate and actually got together, that we would be way farther than we are in this mental health thing, peer-to-peer, and a lot of this psychology and psychological stuff. Very good stuff. I appreciate you listening. Life Skills TTP. Enjoy your day.